Welcome back to Westwood Engineering. Today what we're going to learn is how we can use convert entities and trim entities to take parts of an existing model and place them into a new sketch. So let's get rolling. Very first thing I'd like you to do is to navigate into the LMS, and I'd like you to download the sample part. I've built the sample part you're going to start with, so you all start from the same point. If you wish, you can download the instructions or you can read them online as you go along. So let's get started. I've built myself a little folder here for this exercise, 2.2.3, and the part's name is 2.2.3 sample. Double-click that to open it. Here's my open part. I'd like you to confirm a few things before we get rolling. The very first thing is I want to be sure that you're in millimeters, grams, and seconds. You should be in that as a default of the part. Second thing we need to do is we need to come up here and to go in and change our equation values. Tools, equations. And I'm going to change these variables to what the instructions say. The instructions say make it 86, 58, and 44. Select OK. You'll see the model changes, still fully defined, still good to go. We also want to be sure that our material is AISI 1020. Now if you downloaded the part, that will be set for you. If you'd like to edit this material, you can check it and you can confirm that the density shown right here is 7,900 kilograms per meter cubed, or it would be 0.0079 grams per millimeter cubed. That's the correct material. So we're now going to modify this part. And I'm going to pull the instruction sheet in here and take a quick look at it. And we're going to modify it. And this comes right out of the SOLIDWORKS preparation package for the SOLIDWORKS exam. And we're going to modify this part. We're going to make a couple of cuts. The very first cut we're going to make right here is going to be to cut these notches out. You'll see a notch on the left-hand side and a notch on the bottom. Pretty simple. So let's go ahead and do that. So when I tell you in the instructions, I give you all of the drawings that you need to define this model, and I'm scrolling through them right now. You're going to want to reference back to these. I will periodically do that. I won't necessarily explain everything here since this is a tutorial and not really a monkey see, monkey do on how to do this part. But the very first thing I want you to do is to cut the 19 millimeter left and bottom cuts. That's this cut right here where my cursor is flashing, and here. And it's 19 millimeters deep. We're going to cut from the front surface using Convert Entities and Trim Entities tool. So on my part, what I'm going to do is start a new sketch. I'm going to place the sketch on this front side. Now I need to use these lines that exist in the sketch or in the model, but not in this sketch. So the way I'm going to get these in is called Convert Entities. Convert Entities is located on your sketch toolbar right up here. Select it. Now any line that I pick goes into, goes into my new sketch. So right here, I'm just going through it. I'm clicking lines. If you make a mistake, you can see that you can clear them. And I'm going to go all the way down around the bottom because I'm going to make these two cuts, and I'm not sure what all I'm going to need, but I will select these, anticipating that I'm going to need all of them. Now I'll go ahead and hit the check mark. Now you'll notice that the entities come into the model, and where my cursor is flashing, and I'll zoom the screen in here in just a second, you're going to see these little cubes. These cubes tell you that this geometry of the line that is highlighted comes from an underlying entity. It is not editable by dimensioning. Now if you look back at your instructions, you're going to quickly see that I've got to make two cuts on this thing. And these two cuts are the left-hand cut and the bottom cut. So I'm going to draw these two lines. This line happens to line up with the bottom edge here. So you probably don't need the 19 millimeter dimension, but I do need the 52 millimeter dimension located right here. So we'll drop that line in. It's going to be vertical. On your exam, if it appears to be vertical, assume that it is vertical. And I'm going to basically come off of this point right there because I just happen to know that that is where it lies. Now, if I want to check this dimension, it's going to tell me it's a driven dimension right now. And if I click in here and I drop it, it's 19. And it's going to be gray because it's driven. So that is correct. Now, that's all I really got to do to modify this part after I put this dimension in. Sorry, 52 millimeters from the right-hand side. And now you'll see that I'm fully defined, but I've got these extra entities down here, these extra line edges. Now what I'm going to do to get rid of those is use the Trim Entity button. I have not exited the sketch, so all I'm going to do is come up here and choose my Trim Entities. Now Trim Entities, the one you use the most often is Power Trim, and that's the default. The way the Power Trim works is I start outside of my sketch and I click, hold, and as I drag in, I get that little trail, and any line I touch, I delete. Now, if I touch a line like that I didn't mean to, I can just go Control-Z. Go back into Trim Entities. So I recommend you trim one line at a time and be judicious with it. Lo and behold, when I trim away those 3 extra lines that I had in here, I get the closed bodies that indicate that I can make that cut. Select the check mark or hit Escape to leave the trim tool. I'm going to exit the sketch. I'm going to go ahead and do an extruded cut. And I want this cut to be 19 millimeters blind. And now my part looks like that. Pretty straightforward. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to put a hole right in the middle, and this hole is really quick. I will just let you look up the size while I do this super fast. And I'm sketching on the surface, and I'm dimensioning it incorrectly and laying out where it goes. I'm looking at my instructions on the opposing screen so I can give you the dimensions to this. This goes through all, and I made my second cut. Now the next cut that I need to make here is shown in your instructions, and it's this center notch right here where my cursor is highlighted. Now this particular model has been extruded from the center plane, in other words a mid-plane extrusion. So it's equally distributed about this line shown, which is M. And I need to make a cut. Now we're going to reference the back edge for this cut. We're going to cut from the mid-plane to the back edge, offset by 12 millimeters. Similarly, we're going to do something to cut this front arc out, which will be offset from the back plane by 12 millimeters plus 24 millimeters. Now the shape we're going to cut is shown in this section view, section M, and it's an arc. It intercepts the existing geometry. It has a radius of 41, and the center of that radius lines up with the right-hand edge of the model. So let's start a sketch, except this sketch is going to be on the front plane. So I'll choose front plane, sketch, sketch. Now this only works because I planned to do this when I started my initial model. I did a mid-plane extrusion. Recommend you do that on all of your parts for your exam. So I'm going to go ahead and click Convert Entities, and I'm once again going to go ahead and grab these lines as I go around. And notice I don't need to grab the hole in the middle. That ought to do it. Now I'm going to grab an arc tool. I'm going to drop the center up here, and this is a center arc. I'm going to come down, I'm going to touch this edge, and I want to actually go around to that edge. Get that coincident mark. I'm going to give this my radius of 41, and I'm going to make my arc center coincident with the right-hand side. All right, now the last thing I need to do is I need to give a distance between the top and where this intercepts, and that distance is 36. Should be fully defined. Now you're going to notice that I've got these extra line segments here. This line segment, I'm going to use my power tool again, or power trim rather. Trim Entities, power trim, drag through. Once I do that on both sides, I now get the highlighted closed body, but realize I only see the portion through the hole there that's highlighted, but it is a closed body. Exit my power trim. Now I'm going to do my extruded cut. Okay, this is different. You haven't done this. Remember, I said we're going to reference the back surface here, and we've got 2 cuts to make. Our first cut that we're going to make is going to be 12 millimeters offset from that back surface, from the center towards that back surface. The second cut is going to be from the center towards the front edge, except now it's going to be 36 millimeters from that back surface. So here we go. I can cut an extrusion in 2 directions at once. So the first one is going to be, instead of be blind, it's going to be offset from a surface. I click on the surface, I'm using the back edge, and I want 12 millimeters. And now you see the preview. There's my cut. The second direction I have to highlight here. Select it. Again, offset from a surface. I need to re-choose my surface. And this is going to be 36 millimeters. And now you'll see I've got 2 different cuts here. 12 millimeters and up to 36. Hit the check mark to accept it. Now I've got the middle point cut out of my part. That's all there is to making this model. It's really pretty quick. It took me about 11 minutes to explain it. It'll take you less than that to do it. Be sure you check by evaluating the mass properties, and you should get exactly the mass properties that are in the instructions. 28.183 grams, or 0.18 if you've got 2 decimals. That's all there is to it. Thanks for watching.